was the only hope they had left. The only way to stop the Lightbringers. If the enemy got their hands on the last one, they would have the power to control the entire galaxy. And then it would be all over. Melias walked over and sat beside Ark. She didn't even seem to notice him. Instead, her eyes flitted over the archaic scribble of the texts, and her blue lips muttered rapidly, so fast he couldn't even hope to decipher what she was saying. It didn't help that what he did catch was in the language of the octopoids, the prime ones, the masters that the Lightbringers still tried to serve. Her eyes were rimmed with dark shadows, glistening with unshed tears. She hadn't slept in a long time. For a few moments, he thought it fine to just sit with her and offer that small comfort, but then he knew that she needed true rest. They did not need this deciphered right away. They still needed to find a place to lay low for a small break so they could recover from their wounds and come up with a plan.
Ark, that's enough,
he said as gently as he could, but she didn't hear him or didn't care to listen. He assumed it was the former because Ark usually wasn't one to ignore people, let alone ignore the words of her captain, even if their relationship as captain and subordinate had evolved into something else.
Ark,
he tried again, more forcefully. This time he put a hand on her shoulder and forced her to look at him. She did. "What?" she asked, dazed, but then her eyes regained their focus, and she came back within herself from whatever academic dissociation she'd been in. "Oh, Captain, I'm sorry. What did you say?" He huffed through his nose and shook his head.
You're working very hard to find the last device, and I am grateful, but you're on the verge of collapse. You need some rest. Go find a hammock or a bunk and get some sleep. That's an order.
If they had been in a more jovial and less dire mood, she might have put up an argument, even if it was just a playful and non-serious one. Right now, though, all she did was nod. Her shoulders sagged.
Hey, come here.
He pulled her into a hug before she could rise to leave. He crushed her to him, and it didn't take much to make her squeeze him back. She clutched him tightly, her fingers popping as she tangled her fingers in the fabric of his shirt. Her face nuzzled against his neck.
We're going to figure it out. Together. You don't have to shoulder all of this on your own.
She didn't speak, just nodded. When he felt like some of the eyes of his crew began to wander their way, he released her. Ark took that as her cue to leave. With a sad smile and a single tear, she turned and left, disappearing down the hall to one of the small sleeping pods. They were little more than a single cubby, just wide enough for a small cot or hammock for one to lay in. Not very spacious, but none of Thandriel's original squad had been very large. Only she and one other AV slept on board, and they knew how to bend their wings for space. Claude was not one of her original squad, though they were thick as thieves now. Poor Nummer would likely not even fit in one of the pods. Melias watched Ark go with a pang in his chest. She was hurting, as they all were, though she was also mourning the loss of so many of her personal effects. They'd been links to the thin past of her father, traces that she might never recover. They were lucky that the notes and ancient texts they'd need to find the final device had survived. It was a miracle, if he was being honest. Still, that probably didn't help Ark much, and he wished he could wrap her in his arms and take all of her pain away. But then, as he said and as he knew, they were all grieving. Melias turned on one of the galactic news frequencies, wondering if they would hear any news of widespread chaos and death at the hands of the Lightbringers. Sure, there was one device left, but what was stopping the enemy from using the near-complete staff to turn whole swaths of space into monster-filled hells? The news spoke nothing of what he would expect. It was just the usual news. Updates on the Cerelian Terroroi War, rumblings about the Union-Confederation ceasefire being suspended, updates on the surprise deaths of a couple of AV counselors in their government, and the usual reports of piracy and